hooked up with part 2 of fractions. Who knows how long this is going to go on? It could have lots and lots of parts because there's so much to know. Ancient Egyptians did lots of halving and lots of multiplying by 2. So that's one of the first things that we're going to do in their fractional system. So we're going to start out with, if we had 1/4 and we were multiplying it by 2, we would get 2/4, reduce that down to 1/2. They would have 1/4 times 2, and they would just cut it, the denominator, in half and get 1/2. It's very straightforward for that. So if we had a 16th times 2, we would get 1/8. It's very straightforward. Now comes the difficult part. How did they multiply fractions with an odd denominator by 2? It's interesting. So if we had 1/5 and we were multiplying it by 2, we would get 2/5 and be done, because we have numerators. They didn't really have numerators, so they would have 1/5 times 2. Now what do? If they cut 5 in half, they get 2.5, and they had an aversion to having fractions within fractions just like we do. So they have this handy dandy chart. It has a bunch of identities for anything times to any of the fractions. So we've got 1/5 times 2 is 1/3 and a 15th. They would reference that chart. They would get 1/3 and 1/15. And you're thinking, that seems like a lot of work, but it's, and kind of strange, but it's something we used to do. We had charts for logs, we had charts for sine, cosine, tangent, the whole shebang. So it's not really that odd, it's just a different kind of use of charts, and we've stopped using those charts when we got calculators. That's why it seems so foreign. Now, dividing by 2, if we had 1/4 divided by 2, we would copy and multiply by the reciprocal, and then multiply across. We would get 1/8, and that's where we would get that copy.flop, copy.flip. It's, an algorithm. We memorized it. It doesn't always make sense. I bet if you think to yourself, why does that work? You're going to have to think for a second. You might get there, you might not. It's an algorithm. Now, the ancient Egyptians, if they had 1/4 and they were going to cut it in half, they just think, well, you could share it with 4 people, share it with 8 people. That's going to get you half as much. So they just multiplied the bottom number by 2 and got 1/8. It was a bit more intuitive than our system, which requires an algorithm. So that's really neat. And then I'm going to show you the facts that they did memorize. We memorize multiplication tables 1 through 10 and sometimes up to 12, and they did not. They memorized one specific table though, and it was multiplying by 2/3. 2/3 was a really important number to the ancient Egyptians. They had communities and groups that produced food or baskets or whatever, and within that group, the smallest share a person could get is 2/3, and there were always 42 shares. So 2/3, very important. So they memorized multiplying by 2/3. So they had, so they would start with 3, and 2/3 of 3 is 2. And then they would do 6, and 2/3 of 6 is 4. 9, 2/3 of that is 6. 12, 2/3 of that is 8. and then they'd have 15, and 2/3 of that is 10. I bet you're seeing a pattern now. These go up by 3, these go up by 2. These are the multiples of 3, and these are what they multiply by 2/3 to get. So 18 times 2/3 is 12. 21 times 2/3 is 14. 24 times 2/3 is 16. 27 times 2/3 is 18, and that's all they memorized. That is their memorization. So they used this to multiply by 2/3. I'm going to show you how they did that with numbers that aren't on this chart, and I'll do that later. I'm going to show you how they multiplied by fractions, multiplied by mixed numbers. I'm going to show you the really neat way that they multiplied by 1/3. It's all really fascinating, so stick around for more fractions. Okay, have a great day. Bye!